Take 3, motherfucker.
Take 3. Little do you people know that this is the third time that we're trying to do this. We're having some technical difficulties, but it doesn't stop us. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Hope you have a good holiday with your family, your loved ones that maybe come and visit your houses for this holiday season and for these NFL games and NBA games on Christmas Day.
Yes, sir.
Alex Jacobs, Manny, Ruffin, all day bets. We do have a lot to get into today, but we're going to start this off with some trivia from Snapback Sports.
Yes, so this idea was inspired by the boys over at Snapback Sports. They did a random wide receiver guessing. So I kind of want to put our spin on it. I have a couple classic Super Bowl games from our era, and I'm going to have Alex try to guess the line. I'm going to give him the teams, the final score, and the date. He has to guess the line. First one, close to home. February 5th, 2012. I believe this was Super Bowl, let me check, 42. Giants beat the Patriots 21-17. Oh, I fucked the order for you. Okay, so yeah. So when we did the first take, I had the most recent one when they were 18-0. This is the one when they were 15-4.
The Mario Manningham catch.
Yes. This is 2012. 21-17 Mario Manningham. What was the line in that game?
I'm going to go 5.5.
Close, lower. I'll give you one more guess.
All right.
Lower, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. All right, so I'm not going to go down 1. I'm going to go down 2. I'll go 3.5.
Patriots were -3.
Okay.
That is crazy to me. Y'all were 13-7. The books was knowing, bro. Like if I was locked in back then, that's a Giants.
Yeah, I wasn't old enough.
That's a Giants line.
I wasn't even old enough to know to look at lines.
That's a Giants line.
That is a Giants line.
Next one I have, the horrible
Ooh.
Super Bowl 47. 49ers versus the Baltimore Ravens.
The lights, right?
Yes, the light game. Let me get to this game. The final score was 34-31 Ravens. What was the line in this game? Colin Kaepernick, Jacoby Jones, and them, Michael Crabtree.
I got to think that the 49ers were favored in that game.
Yes, they were.
I'll give them 4.
San Francisco 49ers were -4.5.
Oh,
that's a guess.
I thought I was right.
I
thought I was right.
That's a solid guess, though. That's a solid guess. Next one we go to. A lot of Patriots in this one. My fault, guys. I didn't think about that before I did it. 28-3. Super Bowl 51.
Matty Ice, you should have got your Super Bowl.
Yeah, my fault, Matty Ice. I hate to remind you of this. 34-28 New England Patriots, February 5th, 2017. What was the line in this game?
I'm still going to say that the Patriots were favored in that game.
Yes, they were.
I'm going to give them – I don't want to go – it's a Super Bowl. You can't really be high on these. I'm going to say 4.5.
Lower.
Really? All right, so I guess I'll go 2.5.
It was Patriots -3.
Damn it, I was going to go 3.
And this is when I first started – this was a year after I first started gambling. I was all over the Patriots in that game.
You were probably being pissed come halftime.
Yeah, I was with a shorty at the time. I was watching with the shorty. When Brady threw the pick 6, I completely took my focus off the game and went into loverboy mode. And then about 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, as y'all can guess, I looked up at the score. And
We're
I was
back
like,
locked in.
Holy fuck, we locked the fuck back in. We're riding the bet. That was a fucking classic one. Last one. I had a lot of Patriots here, guys. My fault. I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. Where's this game at? Give me a second.
Is this the
yes
18?
This is Super Bowl. Let me get the Super Bowl number on this. Wait, so my Super Bowl number's messed up. God damn it, Mook. This one is Super Bowl 42.
Okay.
The first one was 46. February 3rd, 2008.
David Tyree, where you at?
David fucking Tyree. Giants won 17-14. Patriots were undefeated going into this game. What do you think the books had their line at?
With a Giants team that had no business getting there.
0. Didn't they beat Brett Favre?
Yeah, they did. Lawrence Tynes
Classic
with the
game.
field goal.
And wasn't there a big interception by Brett Favre too?
Corey Webster, I believe.
Why does he always do that? Brett, come on, Brett.
I think.
Game was freezing cold. I remember that shit.
Yeah, it was cold.
Yup.
All right, so that was the NFC Championship. Lawrence Tynes to get him there. 12.5.
Yo, you might be cracked.
Was it really?
Patriots were -12.5. Hey, yo. I did not think you go get that, John. Sturdy work. So that's like, I'll give you 2 for, what was that, 2 for 4? Kind of 3 for 4. I did not, yo.
I think what's more impressive for me is that I was close on the 49ers one.
Yeah, that was solid.
Because I honestly, I was deciding on if the Ravens were going to be favored in that game.
Yeah,
but
which could have made sense. But Kaepernick hype, they blew out the fucking Packers, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yep.
That was a game he had all them yards. That was sharp. That was low-key sharp from you.
Yeah, we're going to be having some fun with that, too. We're
the minus 12 and a half.
Minus 12 and a half. Damn, okay. All right.
Wow.
All right, let's shift this over to some Kirk Herbstreit news in the media.
Make sure you cut out that I said Super Bowl 42.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Put the date in that, John.
Yeah.
Witness protection.
Witness protection. Kirk Herbstreit going semi-viral with his ESPN.
Absolutely.
Yeah, his ESPN coworkers and colleagues. Shannon Sharp had some comments. So basically, Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler talking about Ohio State after the win, and Kirk Herbstreit makes those comments of, well, First Take was writing Ryan Day off, and after the Michigan loss, and now what? He's here winning, and he's going to keep his job, and they were saying that he was going to lose his job. They were finding other replacements for him during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then Shannon Sharp goes on First Take and says, if we're going to be on the same team, if we're going to work for the same network, don't do that. Kirk, Chris Fowler, I promise you, if you ever mention any platform that I'm on again talking about, I wonder what they're going to say as negativity, I promise you ESPN ain't got enough bosses to keep me off y'all for what I'm about to say. Don't play with me. So, what do you take in your opinion from all of this noise going on with Kirk Herbstreit, Shannon Sharp, First Take?
A lot of things. First of all, you guys probably won't gonna like my opinion because I really don't have a side to pick here. I honestly think both guys are like in the wrong, but in the right, if that makes sense. I actually salute both of them for defending themselves. First and foremost, we have to understand that Kirk Herbstreit was born in Ohio, probably raised a Buckeye fan, quarterback in Ohio in the 90s. I assume if he was quarterback, he was captain of the team. Probably a close advisor to Ohio State, probably big donor, probably talked to every single head coach, you know what I mean? He's probably very, very involved in Ohio State, very prideful. We know how prideful that fan base is. So Kirk Herbstreit hearing the things like that on First Take definitely offends me. And we know Kirk's a passionate guy. We talked about his past before the show and shit like that. He's a passionate dude. I completely understand where he was coming from. Where I don't agree with Kirk is the fact that you used that time of the game not to really celebrate Ohio State and kind of prove your point of why you believe in Ryan Day. Took a shot at First Take, which is like, what I agree with Shannon Sharp said is like, if we're on the same team, don't do that. Because that's just, there's like unwritten rules. That's pretty much like when the quarterback goes into the press conference and the O-line really lost in the game, like, do you blame it on the O-line or do you put it on yourself? You know what I'm saying? It's not too much of the same, but like, what's a good example? I feel like it'd be like, it's kind of like a read in the room thing. Like, I feel like when the Yankees lost the World Series, if I was like in the comment section, like parading for the Dodgers, it'd be like, bro, read the fucking room. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of where I'm at with where I'm like, Shannon, I feel you, bro, because you can't really use that time to call out the opposite show. What I will say about Shannon though, before, like, first of all, like he needs to have his teams back. Like, I actually salute that. I would do the same thing that Shannon did. What we have to understand is this is the mistake I made with Ryan Day as well, which I think First Take is making the same mistake, is that we are not as close-knit to the Ohio State fan base as we think we are. What Kirk does reference a lot is the fringe minority of fans, which there's a lot of fringe minority of fans of Eagles fans. This is why I hate Philadelphia social media. You've heard me say that so many times. I do not even check social media after Eagles games, win or loss. I hate it. So a lot of our opinions and narratives about Ohio State has come from, honestly, the fringe minority talking about them online. Like, you're not, if everyone online is going to talk about how bad this coach is, you're less prone to go in there and advocate about why you think he's a good coach. And honestly, if you look over the history, I mean, besides the fact he's lost to Michigan the last 4 to 5 times, I think it was 4 college football playoffs, been ranked in the top 10 at the end of the year 10 times. I think they made it to the national championship when they lost to Clemson the one year. I want to say they almost made it again. I don't know exactly, but if we were to look in a vacuum and try to say this Ryan Day tenure was unsuccessful, that's incorrect. Now, I understand that fucking Michigan game is huge. It's everything. For a lot of fans, it's like we beat Michigan or we don't beat Michigan. This is where my whole season lies, even if we get the natty. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, as a Penn State fan, I'm going to relate it to the James Franklin thing. Because a lot of Penn State fans, including myself, are skeptical of James Franklin because he can't win the game versus Ohio State. He struggles with the game versus Michigan a lot of the times. But if you look at what James Franklin took Penn State from the Sandusky era, how can you say he's not a successful coach? You know what I'm saying? As much as you want to hate on the guy and whatnot, I kind of am feeling the same way about Ryan Day. And then when I look at it, right, in college football, there's, like, I would say 3 tiers of teams. And we see it in the 12-team playoff where there's elite teams, there's great teams, and there's good teams. More times than not, Ohio State is in that elite category or great category. When I compare it to Penn State, more times than not, Penn State's in that great category or good category. Now, I understand tiers-wise in college football, Penn State and Ohio State are a little different. Let's say like Ohio State's, if we're going to do a tier list, I would say Ohio State's like S tier, Penn State's like A tier. You know what I'm saying? So there's a little bit of a difference there. But when I compare it, I look and I'm like, damn, is Ryan Day actually a bad coach, or are we kind of unfair? There's some rosters where I feel like he should have done better with. I mean, the CJ Stroud team, Emeka Ibuka, JSN, Marvin Harrison as a young bull, Travion Henry. Like, okay, should you have done more with that team? I think so. But that team also wasn't unsuccessful. They played probably the best college football semifinal game versus Georgia of all time. And I think Georgia ended up winning the national championship. And that Georgia team was one of the most remembered teams, one of the best defenses, and one of the best teams ever. I'm pretty sure Ohio State put up 34 points that game. I'm pretty sure it was 34-38. So there's a lot of context there. So all in all, I understand Kirk Herbstreit having his guys back because of the noise and the success that he's had in his career. And then I completely understand Shannon Sharpe having his teams back because I think Kirk Herbstreit using that time of the game to call out first take is completely wrong. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's pretty neutral. I know it ain't the clickbait. You know what I mean? Probably not going to get 50K views. But I really do see where both guys are coming from, honestly.
I just want to know, like, what was Shannon Sharpe alluding to? Like, is that almost classified as, him almost overstepping then? Like, is that a threat of, like, does he know something about Kirk that we don't know that he would air out? Like, what is he... What is he kind of trying to get at that?
I think he felt a little slighted that, you know what I'm saying, First Take's a kind of black-led show. We're getting called out by two white guys on Natty TV. I think that might have had a little bit to do with the frustration, but you kind of got it. I don't think Kirk's on that. That's just me personally. I could be completely wrong. I'll happily eat shit on that, but I don't think Kirk's on that. But I could easily see how it feels that way.
He also had his...
A lot of people come at Stephen A. and kind of, you know what I'm saying, in that kind of way with how he reacts to things. Some people say he doesn't look into things the way he should be, but when Stephen A. is probably the best journalist to walk through ESPN ever. So it's like I could actually understand the frustration on both sides.
His tangent, meaning Shannon Sharpe, was like 30 seconds, and then he was like, I'm not saying any more. I'm passing it over to D.O. and Dan Orlovsky, and that's it. And then Dan Orlovsky was like, oh, I have to follow that?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do?
So I think Dano probably thinks much as most people think, where it's like I can see where both guys are kind of like, because bro, First Take does feed into the narrative shit too much. We have it when I can't listen to them talk about the Eagles or Sixers because it's all narrative talk that's kind of driven by the fringe minority. So but I give them grace because I understand the job. Like, you put yourself in, like, like, obviously this show is nowhere near First Take, guys. I understand. We talk about other teams that we're not closely involved with. And a lot of times I make the mistake of going with the fringe minority opinion because that's what you see so much online instead of going in and looking into these teams. A prime example will be Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman. Probably, and this is, I'm going to point my own bias out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Probably because Marcus Freeman's a black head coach playing for Notre Dame or coach for Notre Dame that gets a lot of hate. I took my own step to really look into Marcus Freeman, watch some more Notre Dame games because I always thought they were fraudulent. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of games I bet against them in
especially
bad spots.
After the bad loss in week 2.
100%. But I'm even the Texas A&M game. I was all over A&M. You remember that game, week 1. And like that's kind of, I was thinking, oh, he might get out coached here. It might not be the big spot for him. He's done well in a lot of those spots where it's like I can't really agree with the fringe minority saying that he needs to be fired. I think in the shoes that First Takes in, it's hard for them to do it because they have to go on a show every day for 3 hours. So they don't have like multiple days of research like we do. You know what I'm saying about a topic. But I think people with the mics and all that, we need to do a better job of looking into what's going on with these teams actually, and then not reading social media, watching a couple of interviews, and seeing what the reporters are trying to insinuate a narrative when they try to write a story and think, oh, this is the story. Because more times than not, it's really not the story. Like the story about Ryan Day's career, as much as people are going to talk about it's not beating Michigan, I can't say that's the story of his career. He's had a lot of good teams, a lot of success where it's like we need to take a close look at these guys' career. I think the same with James Franklin. You know what I'm saying? I've kind of done it with James Franklin this year. We need to do a better job of like actually evaluating these coaches and not letting the fringe minority drive our opinions. But we also need to, Kirk Herbstreit, not get so defensive on air. You know what I'm saying? I know that's your alma mater, but I told you this before we got on air. This is like a thing where I feel like this should have been like a Christmas Eve hotel party in the lounge. A couple drinks are flowing. Kirk Herbstreit sees Shannon across the room and goes, this is my time to say something. And you know what? Maybe it is. And that's kind of what you do it behind closed doors. We heard there was an altercation between Shannon and Kirk Herbstreit. We don't know what happened, and then we can move on. But doing it on air at the end of the game when your team just beat Tennessee 42-17 is completely the wrong spot to do it, in my opinion.
Also, you can somewhat place this argument for Kirk's sake to say, well, it was 42-17 at that point.
Yeah.
Time's kind of
Slow
expiring.
down.
You got to put in some fillers at that point.
Yeah.
Like, the game's over. I guess you can kind of play devil's advocate and say, well, the game was over. We're just kind of talking about Ryan Day because there's not much else you can say more about the game
100%.
because the game is a blowout. You got 4.5 minutes left in the game, and we got to talk about something.
Yeah. I just think you should use that time to celebrate Ryan Day, then talk about first take. You know what I'm saying?
So, on that point, to the 12-team college football playoff, which concluded this weekend, and I do want to just come out and say that regardless of the blowouts, it was unbelievably fun to completely couch out all day on Saturday and just watch college football.
I'm happy you're in that boat because I love this shit, bro.
This was so much fun. Would you rather watch the Rate Bowl?
Exactly.
No. So let's not be upset that there was blowouts. And let's not go there and say, oh, well, Tennessee didn't deserve to be there or Indiana didn't deserve to be there just because they got blown out. Oh, Lane Kiffin's tweeting that Ole Miss would have had a better outcome. They maybe would have made it a closer game. Or Alabama and SEC fans would have said, well, Alabama would have played a better game against any of these guys. Or then we start bitching about seeding and say, well, maybe Texas should have gotten the bye, and then it's Arizona State and Clemson, and then that's a better game. Let's just put all that aside and say, well, we had a great weekend of watching these games, and it's the first time that we've had a 12-team college football playoff.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be perfect every year, and it's certainly not going to be perfect in the first year that we do this. And look, if you want to talk about blowouts, we are not, this is not anything new from CBS Sports. The college football playoffs previous 21st round semifinal games were decided by an average of 3 scores, 17.85 points. The 4 first-round games this year were won by an average of 19.25 points. So this is not anything new about, blowouts. And I will agree and steal Kirk Herbstreit's points that he was talking about on Pat McAfee's show yesterday, saying, well, I ask this every year in our meetings with committee in August. With all these people around, I put my hand up and I ask, for the playoff, when we get there, again, this is in August. For the playoff, when we get there, are we deciding the 12 best teams? Or are we deciding the 12 most deserving teams? Because I want to know when we get to deciding this, are we picking a team and he goes off on it and says, well, a team like Indiana, they won 11 games. Tennessee won 11 games. Are they most deserving or are they the best team that should be put in there? So that's the category that I think needs to be, I guess, perfected moving forward in terms of best teams. And maybe that's going to mean we may be seeing a 3-loss Alabama team in there. Maybe a 3-loss Ole Miss team in there. Maybe a team like Miami with Cam Ward, a Heisman finalist, that did lose to Georgia Tech, but maybe they are the better team to get in there. So I think that's the point that needs to be made. But again, like I said, it's not going to be perfect every year, and it's certainly not going to be perfect at the very first year that we're doing this.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And I also think I'm just going to talk for the football sickos here. As you said, you thoroughly enjoyed this shit. I just want to paint a picture real quick, bro. We had a college football playoff home game in South Bend.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, one of the most storied franchises in college football. I'm going to be honest. This game had the makings to be a classic early. You get the turnover by Notre Dame. Curtis Vert goes down the field early. Look confident, look great, got a little overconfident, force the ball into triple coverage, get the turnover. They should have scored in that drive. Instead, Notre Dame takes over. We get a 98-yard touchdown. The game's kind of different from that point. But still in that game, at least for me, just as a football sicko, it kept me engaged. There was enough third down conversions that Indiana could have got, enough third down conversions for Notre Dame where if Indiana stopped them, the game could have got interesting. We had the punt call by Cignetti. I was pretty locked in that game the entire time. Clemson, Texas, I also say. Texas got off to a crazy start, but Clemson answered enough time to keep me locked in for the entire game. You want to talk about the SMU Penn State game? You want to talk about the Ohio State Tennessee game? I will give you all those. As a football sicko, I was still locked in, but there's definitely different examples. Why I think this playoff was sick. I didn't even get to talk about it in our first take, but bro, talk about a playoff game in South Bend. We had a playoff game in Texas. Then we had a playoff game in fucking Beaver Stadium.
106,000
One thing that they did a great job of highlighting, which someone pointed out on social media, where it was when these games are on Fox, they kind of lower the crowd noise and let Gus Johnson talk, which I agree. They shouldn't do that because if you watch the ESPN broadcast, they let that crowd noise bump, and that added a whole different atmosphere to the game that we're not even getting in the second week of college football playoff. So I think there's some things that we need to take away from the first week that are just going to be exclusive to the first week of college football, much like the first week of the 14. We're okay, blowouts can happen, but we're showcasing different type of things. Also, too, I forget Buddy's name, man. But there's also players that we didn't get to really see a close look at that you can highlight in these playoff games. First, there was the wide receiver on Notre Dame that won a national championship with the lacrosse team. two-sport athlete, had a fucking great game. I forget his got where's he at? Right here at the top. Jordan Fashion. National champion lacrosse player, had an outstanding game for Notre Dame in the playoff. I think he only had like 16 receptions. They said he had 16 receptions during the regular season. Then you get to see a guy like this in this game go off. Now I have another story to watch for the rest of the college football playoff. Like this, I'm not saying that's what the first weekend is for, but there's little things like that. There's people talking about Clay Klubnik now, asking, is he going to be the top guy in the next draft pick because of the way he was leading the comeback in the second half, which he looked outstanding in the second half. I personally think the first round of the playoffs, we saw why the first round of the playoffs exist in any sport. Let's see who belongs. Let's see who doesn't belong. The committee made the choice. We can talk about how they got to this decision and how we need to change it. But ultimately, even when the committee makes the choice that we want, the first round is legit for the balancing of the powers, who belongs, who doesn't, who's real, who's not. Let's see how these teams match up in the next round. I think a lot of people, I said it on the first take, want their cake and eat it and to eat it too. Because if we do want to do it the way everyone says, like not the whatever the most deserving teams, let's do the best teams. At that point, we're trying to write a movie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, of course I want to see what? Alabama versus Texas round 1. Of course I want to see what? Miami versus Notre Dame round 1. Of course I want to see what? Ole Miss versus Penn State round 1. If I'm writing a Netflix series, you know what I'm saying? Of course. There was criteria we had to meet in year 1. The year 1 criteria, as we've seen in the 14 college football playoff, was never the best. I think Ohio State ran through the first college football playoff in 2015 with Ezekiel Elliott. It was 2 blowouts, I'm pretty sure. They blew out Alabama and they blew out Marcus Mariota in them. I think we need to give this time. I understand the criticism. I understand what everyone has a problem with. I just think we have because I want to compare it to the NFL, right? The NFL's had so many years to refine their playoff system. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't around in the 50s and 60s. I don't know how flawed the system was, but if you look at how many times the NFL playoffs has changed, I'm sure that system was flawed at first. People had a lot of problems with it. We got to give this shit time, and we can't do the thing where we want to see exactly what we want. We need to remember what's best for competition and what's best for the sport. As a football sicko, of course I would want to see Ole Miss versus Penn State. Of course I want to see Miami versus Notre Dame. But we also need to keep competitive integrity and make sure these regular season games matter as much as they did. I mean, those Georgia-Texas games were fucking battles. Alabama had battles that were huge. Ole Miss had battles that were huge. All these games throughout the year were massive because of what we knew were going to happen in this first week, where there was going to be certain teams that made it in because these teams lost and certain teams that made it in because these teams won. There's going to be a balance, but we have to keep the balance between competitive integrity and then the criteria. I understand, guys. I would want to do most deserving too. Like me personally, I would love to do most deserving. We would see the best games. They'd be awesome. All the best storylines. I would love to see the Tide. I love Jalen Monroe. I love all these teams. Whatever. I'd love to see them in. We just have to keep the competitive integrity, and we have to remember we can't have our cake and eat it too, man. Like I think these guys are going to figure it out. My personal opinion, I think the quarterfinals is going to be the best round possible. I remember when the 14 college playoff was the conversation, everyone was like, if it was 8, if it was 6, it'd be so good. It'd be so good. We're getting there. You know what I'm saying? And I think the quarterfinals is going to be legendary. But we have to give this shit time, man. And just enjoy the games, enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy it for what it is. They will figure it out. You know what I mean? Give these people time.
And it goes to show, like, moving forward, will this turn out to be a Big Ten versus SEC type of college football playoff? But again, we have to get through that.
I think what I talked about a couple weeks ago was like, if we can just find a way to balance out these non-conference games, bro, we'll find a pretty good middle ground. I don't know. Like I said, we can't really do the whole same thing that college basketball does because of health and the amount of games and shit. But why can't Alabama play one less FCS school? Why can't Notre Dame play one less FCS school? Why can't Texas play one less FCS school? Why can't they play each other? You know what I'm saying? And then we can balance out the powers a little better there. They'll find their way. You know what I mean? I'm not really worried, man.
I also just want to add the point of Notre Dame in terms of the blowout factor. Let's not create the narrative of Indiana with 17, Notre Dame 27 final score. Notre Dame ran the game for 3.5 quarters, probably.
No, they ran it for 4 quarters.
Like 3 and.
They ran it for 4 quarters.
It was onside kick bullshit to get there. Like it was 3 blowouts. Let's not paint that picture.
It's like there's just like nuance to the blowout. You know what I mean? But it was 100% not. It wasn't what we wanted. You feel me? There was just that was like the one game maybe besides Clemson that had enough to keep you engaged. But 100%.
And on the non-conference point
it wasn't
too,
what we needed.
I think to your point of non-conference games, that will kind of eliminate the, point that Kirk's trying to make of, well, Indiana was an 11-win team. You had Tennessee in that same boat as well, where maybe those are most deserving, but maybe they aren't best.
And we don't gotta like make it OD. Like we don't have to make Indiana go to Alabama week 1.
Right.
Like, we don't gotta OD. What like a dream matchup, right? I'm like just because based on what happened this year. What if we have Indiana go to Colorado next year? What if we have Notre Dame and Miami play? You know what I'm saying? Those won't be catastrophic losses for the teams, but that'd be a fine way to see, where are they actually at? What if we have SMU go play like a South Carolina? You know what I'm saying? Like we could find some even matchups to be able to see where these teams match up against each other. I think there's a way we can do it. We'll figure it out, man. I love college football, and I think we'll figure it out.
And we have 2 double-digit spread games in this quarterfinal.
Now, okay, about the quarters, because we can get to that. I actually think the double-digit point games, I could be coping. Now, y'all can call me out for coping. You know what I'm saying? I do it a lot on this show. But I think the double-digit spread games on this round will be better than the double-digit spread games in the last round. We know Boise State history. We know hook and ladder, Statue of Liberty, all that shit. Don't they just thrive in this moment? And they already played Oregon hella close. So I'm not ready to write that game off as bad. Arizona State as well. Kind of comparable to Texas. I mean, Clemson might be a little better. But I think with the story with Bo Scadaboo, Dillingham, their coach, the energy they have, I think people are sleeping on the quarterback a lot. That guy can ball. And then Jordan Tyson, I talked about, he missed the championship game, and they still look great without Jordan Tyson. But now we're getting a 10 touchdown, 1,000-yard wide receiver back as well in that offense. I think this game has potential to be good. I wouldn't sleep on these quarterfinal games. I have a feeling they're going to be legendary. I'll happily eat shit and be wrong, but we got some wild match. In terms of just styles, too, I think we have some great matchups.
And again, we're going to have 50-50 crowd splits.
Yep.
We're not going to be – most of these games are in a dome, inside, outside of the Rose Bowl, but it's still going to be 59, 60, 62 degrees, something like that. We don't have to deal with the cold, any of that kind of stuff. So it is going to change that a little bit. We get to see Arizona State, like you said, with Scadabo, with a better run game than Clemson, see if that changes things with Texas. But the way that Texas looked, I'd be scared not to kind of lean towards that 13.5.
I think I have that parlay where it's Oregon and fucking the Birds. And I'm going to be picked because you know what happened to me, right? Because I was calling out Indiana and Tennessee for not belonging. And then I backed them. And then all year I talked about how I'm a Sark guy this, Sark guy that, Sark guy this. I'm also a Dan Lanning guy. But I made that parlay when we were sitting down here asking if I had 2 teams from the NCAA and the NFL to choose. And I was staring at Texas because I'm a Sark guy, and I chose Oregon. It's going to be funny if I just get burned on going against my convictions all year. I just want to see if this is going to happen. It probably will happen, but God damn it, bro.
To the NFL slate on Christmas Day, the Chiefs are -2.5 in Pittsburgh. And I do just need to say this about the Chiefs. The fact that they have, in their last 9 games, they just covered back-to-back spreads. Before that, they did not cover a spread for 7 straight weeks. Although they're not doing that, they're still winning games. This is not any type of, glaze on Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They are just winning games. They're basically just playing the outcomes of these games down the stretch, and these last couple of possessions are playoff games. They are, sure, they're not covering these double-digit point spreads against the Panthers and against the Raiders, but they are winning games, and this is making me think that I am not going to fade them anymore. I just have to take Kansas City -2.5. I talked myself out of taking them against the Texans, and yeah, that probably could have had a better chance of cashing the Texan spread with Tank Dell. And again, just prayers up to what he's got to go through again, back-to-back years of season-ending injuries and what that's going to take to the work that's going to take to get back. But with all that being said, Chiefs still covered in that game. I still do think they can cover in this game. You got the Steelers at home at +136. You did highlight this game when we went through the Steelers schedule at the very beginning of the season in August.
Game of the year.
At the game of the year. Where do you go in this game? You can't back off the Steelers now.
I heavily lean Steelers. This is why football is an awesome sport. Cause holy shit, you circle this game. I know Steelers fans did. I know a couple other fans like myself did. Christmas Day, you gotta play the Steelers at Heinz Field, most likely for the North. I had a stat. Mike Tomlin off a loss, obviously second best ATS of all time, 50, 35, and 1. He has lost the last one off a loss, didn't cover the spread. I think it's a hard fade to fade Mike Tomlin when he's lost 2 straight games.
And not covered.
Not covered. He's playing for the North. One thing a lot of people haven't been talking about, I highlighted last week when we were talking about the game, the importance of George Pickens to Russell Wilson. like, we all understand that Russell Wilson isn't a world beater at this point. He's still a good quarterback, but we obviously see how much he needs George Pickens. I'm pretty sure George Pickens is back. I also think TJ Watt, Hayward, that matchup would be able to clog the middle for Pat Mahomes and then have Watt come off the edge for Pat Mahomes might be a problem for them. I really don't think this is a spot. Like, I can't see the Steelers losing 3 straight to end the season. Now, a lot of people are calling them fraudulent. I really can't see it happening. One big thing about this matchup, too, which is a big reason why the Chiefs found a way to cover these games, we got the best third down offense in the league with the Chiefs, and the 5th best third down defense in the league with the Steelers. This game's going to be decided on third down, 1,000%. If the Steelers can get off the field consistently on third down, I don't see a world where the Chiefs honestly win the game. And I'm gonna have to go with Mike T here. It's not, I can't, like, it's funny because remember last week how I said a lot of people are gonna be lazily taking Mike T? I feel like people are still gonna be taking Mike T here because his homie is an underdog and he's off 2 straight losses, but I just feel like it's a spot to back him. Also, the public ate last week. Yeah, I expect some buyback from the casino. But with Mike Thomas' record off a loss, ATS, this being for the North, at home on Christmas Day, I know the energy in Heinz Field is going to be insane. Pick is back. The energy in the offense should be back a little bit. It's a Steelers spot for me.
At that line, too, you get plus money at home.
Yeah,
it does make sense.
It's a Steelers
but again,
spot
in their 5 losses this season, the Steelers, even though they did lose all those games, they also did not cover in any of those games. So again, if you are sitting there saying that you think that the Chiefs are going to win this game, well, then just take the Chiefs on the spread because the Steelers in all their losses have not been able to cover a spread. And look, yeah, it does look like Pickens is going to be back. We'll see what the matchup is going to be. I saw some weird tweet, going on a Kelsey tangent. I saw some weird tweet where the New Heights podcast posted a picture of Kelsey after the win. And I don't know how true this is, but it was a picture of Kelsey after the win. He's kind of like in like a flexing kind of pose. And it says like, win, on to the next or something like that. They ended up deleting it. I don't know if it's because Kansas City didn't play amazing or Kelsey didn't have the best of games, but it is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I still do think that the Chiefs are going to win this game, and they will. Look, it's a 2.5 point spread for a reason. It's going to be a close game. Maybe Boswell kicks a late field goal to win by 1. You lose the game. You lose the spread there. I'm not mad at anybody that's saying that the Steelers are going to win this game, especially because, like you said, they did come off, back-to-back losses. But I'm riding with the Chiefs on this one. And then we get to the Ravens and the Texans at the 4 o'clock slate, 4:30. Again, this is on Netflix, so shout out Netflix for locking down the 2 Christmas Day games. And a funny note on this game that just needs to be stated is that since Tank Dell is gone, Deontay Johnson is off the Ravens, and the Texans claimed him. What's that first game that he's going to play in? Hosting his, I guess you can say, former team that he didn't even touch the field for. So is there a narrative there? Do we look at Deontay Johnson props?
Because the first game, don't quote me on this. No, it wasn't. But I remember the first game that Deontay Johnson came to the Ravens, everyone was kind of trying to target him. I think his over-under on receptions was like 1.5. I'm pretty sure his yards were like 16.5. I don't think he hit anything. Maybe his catches. And he just looked underwhelming. I think he has a lot of bad blood with the Baltimore team. But I ain't going to look at Deontay Johnson. One thing that is a narrative, though, I don't think he's going to be that. I just don't think he's going to be that big of a help in this week on a short week. But it's a real thing when new guys come in a locker room. What were their signals? What was this? What was that? What was this? What was that? Obviously, I think the Ravens are going to change a lot of shit this week. Something about this spread, though, right? I think it opened at 4 or 3.5 or 4. And that's where I kind of agree. I think it opened at 4. And that's where I kind of agreed with it. With the public sprinting to bet the Ravens, obviously the books respect it because they're bumping the lineup. So the books respect the Ravens money that's coming in. Obviously, probably because of all the injuries, you lose Shaq Mason, you lose Tank Dell. I'm pretty sure you lost someone else as well. It makes sense. I just talked about this on our first take. This is a team where they love to play up the competition and play down the competition. The only good team that's really handled them this year was the Vikings game in week 2 where they lost 31-7. Besides that, legit, all their games versus the top teams are decided by 3 points or less. Now, obviously, Tank Dell's playing those games. Shaq Mason's playing those games. Obviously, that's a big thing. I do think it's not a time to back a team when they're faltering, they also have a lot of playoff seeding to play for. If they win this game in terms of playoff seeding, they can put them in a very good spot. Whereas they lose, their first round matchup looks pretty not promising. You have that to play for, and then you have Tank Dell to play for. And if you can notice how that injury affected the team, he probably is, in my opinion, probably the most important guy in the locker room besides CJ. I mean, the whole team was fucked up about that. I don't like fading football teams when they had that much to play for. I don't know if it's going to matter necessarily because of how bad they look without him offensively, especially in the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter of that Chiefs game. I'm pretty sure it was like three straight three and outs. So you probably could see the same thing. I cannot stand fading a team when they're in that spot because you see these teams win, you're like, wow, I'm an idiot. I knew they were going to fucking come out inspired. They had Tank Dell. They're playing for playoff seeding. I'll just tell my Ravens backers to caution out the win. But I do probably think I can't put my money on the Texans in this spot, even though I probably lean there. It's just so hard to.
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to fade the Ravens right now. I feel like they're one of the scarier teams there.
Can we talk about Lamar Jackson is the MVP of the NFL?
It's crazy. This narrative is finally starting to resurface again. Finally, right? We're starting to see it again.
I think people are. Can we talk about the arm punt? I think people are tired about that. Listen, guys. That was an arm punt. I'm not trying to defend Josh Allen here at all, but it was an arm punt. Now, I will say something about that play, though. 3rd and 16, you're on your plus 45, 48-ish, 3rd and 16. They ran it looked like two verts in a really deep post by Kincaid down the middle, looking for a shot play. Why don't you just run maybe a dig across the middle, maybe a stick and a flag on the opposite side, try to get 10, 15 yards, play for 4th down and play for the field goal. But it was an arm punt. But anyway, Lamar Jackson's playing better than Josh Allen. Now, it might be more flashy what Josh doing. He has a 6-touchdown game, has this and that. But I saw something about people talking about games with under 100 QBR, games with above 100 QBR, how the team's performing those things. Lamar's far and away when you look at optics and everything else, I think Lamar's just the MVP, man. I could go deeper and deeper into it, but this guy has, I think, 37 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Can you fact check me on that, actually? I think he has 37 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. It's not so bad for a running back. And, of course, obviously, he's doing his thing with his legs as well. And also something that I don't think people are talking about too much as well when it comes to, 37 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, Alex. And then go to the rating, because we talked about this earlier. But, is that 120 QBR?
Yeah, so here's this stat, too, from NFL and CBS. QB seasons with 120-plus passer rating in NFL history, minimum 300 attempts. 2004, Peyton Manning, MVP. 2011, Aaron Rodgers, MVP. 2020, Aaron Rodgers, MVP. 2024, Lamar Jackson. What's that mean? And
only, I would say, about one half of those motherfuckers could actually run. 2011, Rodgers could scramble a little bit. Then you add the thing with Lamar in the run game. And then to add to Lamar's MVP point, to be honest, because people want to talk about the Derrick Henry shit. Did you, because this, I'm just going to use this one game, because it's been happening all year. But there's at least 3 to 4 examples in that Steelers game where they ran a read option, and you could see the linebackers and the safeties are so keyed on Lamar Jackson that Derrick Henry has so much green grass to work with. If you let Derrick Henry get a full head of steam, of course he's going to fucking rush like this. I'm not going to take away anything from Derrick Henry, but I think people are doing too much of Derrick Henry this, Derrick Henry that, Derrick Henry this. I don't think you guys understand how much Derrick Henry relies on Lamar Jackson and the attention that he gets to be successful in the run game as well. God damn it. You know what I'm saying, bro?
There's your stats right there. 4,063 to 4,500 total yards.
How many of those losses as well are on Chris Boswell? Or not Chris Boswell, Justin Tucker. How many of those losses are on Justin Tucker out of the 10-5? 2? At least 2? Because people like to do this thing where he's 10-5. You can't lose this team, this team, this team. Are those losses on him or are those losses on somebody else? You know what I'm saying? Now, I hate playing that game in football. I really do hate playing that game in football. But this guy missed six kicks in the game before. You know, we got to call a spade a spade. Lamar Jackson is the MVP.
I'm taking Ravens minus 5.5. I am a little bit
scared
too,
of it. Why isn't the head-to-head matchup even I think in any other year, if an MVP matchup happens and the one MVP candidate beats the other one 35-10, not 35-38, you know what I'm saying? Not with a Monday Night Football game between the Rams and the Chiefs where it's 52-46. It was 35-10. That has to hold a lot of weight. You know what I'm saying? Lamar Jackson is the MVP.
I'm backing with the Ravens here because they need to win this game.
I would hate for them to lose this game, and then now it's like Josh.
And it's also, too, like, you get the Steelers before that. So let's just say the Steelers do beat the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Then that game matters insanely in terms of where we stand in the division. You get a Steelers loss and a Ravens win. We got to win on them.
Can you give him
a game?
Do you give him the MVP if they don't win the division?
Is that
fair criteria? Yeah,
how far factored into that does that play versus actual just individual stats?
For me, I think even if they don't win the division, I think you still give it to Lamar.
Well, what's the award? Most valuable player.
Exactly.
So are we talking about the outcome of the? I mean, I guess you could then say if we're going off most valuable player, then Burrow needs to be in the conversation too.
Yeah, trust me, you know how I feel about that.
Right. So it just goes to the standpoint of, are we basing this award off of the sole individual player for the actual acronym of the name, MVP, most valuable player, or are we saying, well, the team was 12-5 or 10-7, they didn't win the division, so that's going to factor in. That means he doesn't get the MVP. I just don't know. I don't know what the criteria is of what they're looking for, but in my eyes, it's MVP. And I remember last year we had this conversation with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, like, and CMC.
Where would the Dolphins have been last year without Tyreek Hill?
And CMC. And something that's funny, too, because looking back on it, obviously, like, nothing changes, but, like, using, like, it's so crazy because it's hard for me not to think that CMC should have won MVP last year. You know what I'm saying? It's hard. But, like, fuck, bro. I don't want to punish Lamar for that.
But then say you could put that on Saquon Barkley then.
Absolutely. But it's a little different because I think CMC was way more to that team than what Saquon was. Like, I think Saquon's more of an enhancement to the Eagles to where CMC legit.
For sure. You're absolutely right. But I will just say from a numbers standpoint.
Yeah, it's the same shit.
Saquon blows that season out of the water from CMC last year. Just from a pure numbers standpoint. But from the meaningfulness of the team. Yeah.
But like that Ravens team last year was so dog shit. Like, realistically. And they looked like the best team in football. But if you, like, this Ravens team this year would completely trounce that Ravens team last year. With Patrick Green, with Geno Stone. I 100% believe that. So, it's a hard conversation, but I think Lamar's the MVP.
I'm backing the Ravens here. I do feel a little bit scared. Like, I feel like for whatever reason, this game could be like 24-20 Ravens.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
You know? And then we lose. But, like, I got to, bet teams, not numbers. I got to just take the Ravens here. I think they are the better team.
Especially with the injuries going on.
You got a lot of injuries in Houston. And, again, Houston still has a chance here. I just feel like this game matters more for Baltimore than it does for Houston. And they got to play like they own it. Because, again, if the Steelers win, that game just, for the Ravens, skyrockets in terms of how much this matters for them for that division and where their playoff seating is going to be.
That's going to be... Like, damn, I might not put because damn, if the Steelers win that game, that's hard. Texans game is a hard game to bet.
Like, what I honestly may do,
because if you bet the Texans pregame and then the Steelers win like in emphatic fashion, like you're holding that Texans ticket. Like, what the fuck did I just?
That's
do?
What I mean. So, like, what do you do then? Do you?
You hold your conviction, but like, damn.
But I'm saying, do you wait until the end of the Steelers, or when let's just say that the Chiefs are blowing them out, and then it's like, okay, now I'll bet the Ravens, or
you could get it. You could put yourself in, like, if I bet the Texans early, and then let's say the Steelers win, and then more money comes on the Ravens, and it goes to 6.5. You could play for a middle.
Right.
It's kind of what I would probably try.
Because I feel like if the Steelers do win this game, that may go up for the Ravens. Go
absolutely.
6.5. Got to win by a touchdown.
You could play for a middle.
Something like that.
I'm a little sick, though.
Let's head to Sunday slate here with the couple games here. Just the Broncos in Cincinnati. Now, the playoff hopes are not dead yet.
Nah.
For the Cincinnati Bengals. They are 3-point favorites. The Bengals are 3-point favorites. And the Broncos and Bo Nix are plus 142 on the money line. This game does matter for the Bengals. I remember, and this was 2 weeks ago, they were plus 1,100 to make the playoffs on DraftKings. And now, with a couple outcomes here for the Bengals to make it, but I feel like, I know yesterday I was kind of on Bo Nix. I think just for the putting Joe Burrow in a spot, must-win game, keep the playoff hopes alive. I think I got to ride with the Bengals.
Yeah, this was a tough game for me to get to the window-wise about the spread. Just because watching the Broncos the last couple weeks, they've been able to establish the run game so well. They have a nice little, you could say two-headed monster, but they can pull in 3 guys in that run game and look really, really, really successful. I think Sean Payton's done a very good job with Bo Nix. I think also watching that Thursday Night Football game, Bo Nix has done a great job like commanding that team, commanding that sideline, being a vocal leader on that sideline. I think they've really found something late in the year. The one thing that makes me want to think I should take an over in this game, first of all, Bengals defense, you should just already look at the over already.
Right.
But the last couple of weeks, the Broncos defense hasn't looked necessarily great. Obviously, up 34 to the Chargers, a couple games in the 20s versus some teams that you shouldn't be letting into the high 20s, you know what I'm saying? And then the narrative I talked about last week when I was back in the Chargers was the Broncos versus quality quarterbacks. A lot of quality quarterbacks seem to get off versus the Broncos for whatever reason or another. I don't know why that is. But they've only held, I think, one down. I forget the exact game, but they've only held down one real elite quarterback. A lot of elite quarterbacks seem to get off versus team. To me, it seems like a classic over spot. I think the Broncos are playing for just as much as the Bengals are. The Bengals will be eliminated if they lose, but the Broncos are sliding the wild card spot. With that loss to the Chargers, they're still gonna make the playoffs. I think they need to get a win or two, but their seeding is getting pretty affected. They probably want to keep winning for seeding reasons. I think this has the makings of 28-24, 30-28, game-winning field goal type of thing. I think it's an over spot here. And I would heavily lean to the Broncos. I just can't get to the window. I mean, not the Broncos. Heavily lean to the Bengals. I just can't get to the window with those guys, man, just how I've seen them look this year. I think it's an over spot, though, for sure. I think Joe Burrow does his thing. I think Lamar does his thing. I think the run game's able to get off for the Broncos, and the play-action game's going to be able to get off. I like it over here.
Yeah, it's smart, too, with that defense, too. We've seen it all year. You said it, too, with that Bengals and Steelers game, too.
Broncos last 5 overs are 3-1-1. Bengals last 5 are 3-2. Teams are shading towards the over. I think it's just an over spot.
Bengals are eliminated if they lose this game, but if they do win this game, they'll have a scenario to win in Week 18, and the Broncos will have to lose out, which would have this game against the Bengals, and then they will play Kansas City in the last game of the year.
So now, it's very, very real.
But, again, you assume that with the Chiefs, they're most likely sitting most of those guys. Mm-hmm. Do you almost just hand the Broncos the win and the Bengals are out?
Yeah. If I was the Kansas City Chiefs, that's exactly what I would do. I ain't trying to see Burrow in the playoffs.
That's right.
That's exactly what I would do.
We've seen what's happened in 2021. We've seen what's happened.
Exactly what I would do.
And then another high-tier game on this Sunday slate is the Packers visiting the Minnesota Vikings as plus 1.5-point dogs. They did just clinch the playoffs with their win against the New Orleans Saints in big grand fashion, 34-0 at Lambeau. Packers are plus money at plus 100 on the money line here. And the one thing to note here as we talk about with the Packers getting swept by the Lions, would they end up just folding and get swept by Minnesota?
Well, you just made a fucking outstanding point with the Packers locking up that playoff spot. I actually want to look at where they're at in the standings right now. So they're the second wild card team. I guess the Commanders could, leapfrog them if they lose out. If they lose this Viking game and the Bears game, which they probably won't. And then the Commanders have Falcons, Cowboys, which is 2 winnable games for them. So they do still have enough to play for. Because that Cleveland playoff thing kind of scared me. But so you're facing the team that I think for pride reasons, you don't want to get swept by the Lions and then the Vikings, first and foremost. That's why I was shading Packers to begin with. Then also, I'm pretty sure they lost to the Vikings on a time-expiring field goal. Lost to the Lions in the second time to get swept when Jared Goff stumbled on 4th and 2, got the handoff off. Like, just some unlucky circumstances where I feel like they need to get their get back on somebody. You know what I'm saying? And then still for seeding reasons, I think they win this game, they probably lock up that 6th seed. And you don't have to go see I don't know how it'll work out, but if they lock up that 6th seed, matchup reasons, it could be the Eagles, whatever. You don't want that 7th seed, I don't think. I think there's enough to play for here, but damn, I don't love the Packers as much as I did with them locking up that spot. I don't know if I'm talking myself out the spot or not. I still believe it's a Packer spot. I don't think you want to go 1-4 in the division, bro.
Vikings still are playing to, try to lock up that division, assuming that
that is true.
Lions
there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake here. Damn.
Vikings need this win more than the Packers do.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I think, honestly, from a pride standpoint, the Packers would love more anything than to spoil the Vikings season or spoil the division hopes and keep their seeding right. I'm going to still lean Packers here. It's not as heavy as I did before the last. I didn't have that. Damn, I didn't think about that. it's not. I don't lean as heavy as I did yesterday, but I still lean Packers in the spot. I think just for pride reasons, bro. Getting swept by the Vikings and Lions would really like that would just fuck them up. I think personally, I think LaFleur's big on that. I think the Packers could have easily like won both games. The one Vikings game and the last Lions game they could have easily won. Even the first Lions game, even though they got beat by 14, I think there was points in that game where they were in it. Besides some turnovers, I think pride might kick in here and they get this win.
Well, if you look at it for Lions and Vikings sitting at 13-2, Vikings hosting the Packers here, Lions Monday Night Football in San Francisco. Regardless of the outcome in both of these games, let's say they both win. You're now both 14-2. Well, then the Lions and the Vikings play each other in the last week of the season, which would be for the division. So if you're the Vikings, just win now and just hope some crazy shit happens in that 49ers game in San Francisco on Monday night, and then all you have to do is just win against the Lions in the last week of the season.
Yep.
Now you're at Ford Field for that game.
Yep.
So that does play a little bit of a factor, but I feel like I would lean if they both win this weekend, meaning Lions and Vikings, I will be taking the Lions at Ford Field. Dan Campbell, must-win game, lock up the division, go to 15-2. You get the 1 seed. I stand there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make too many heavy leans today. We're gonna record again on Friday, so I'll probably be more convinced in that game on Friday. I still probably lean Packers, but we got to put some respect on the Vikings at some point. Yeah. I mean, I haven't faded them at all this year.
I guess I have to come back on what I said because after 3 weeks of football, I said they're a fraudulently 3-0 team. I haven't really been backing them for the majority of the season. I have to come back and say, well, Sam Darnold, you proved me wrong. You did have that little bit of, not fall off, but you just came back down to a little bit more of
who he is.
Who he is. And then they're still winning games.
He's not. I mean, he's playing like a top 10 quarterback this year, but
the connection with Justin Jefferson is right there.
What the reality is that Sam Darnold's a good quarterback. I think he's really good. I don't think he's elite, and I think he's good enough to do what he's doing right now consistently, personally. He will have his dips, though. One thing I do want to say, though, about the Vikings, because I'm just going to say it until Kingdom Come. Brian fucking Flores. One of the best passing defense, one of the best rushing defense in the league. This guy got ran out of Miami, was getting bribed to lose games.
That's crazy.
I see how Mr. Mike over there with the Jewel Pods is doing with this pretty much the same roster. So shout out to Brian Flores, man. Not a lot of people are going to be talking about it. I don't think they're going to talk about it until you get to like the NFC Championship game, maybe the Super Bowl. But he's obviously the defense hasn't been doing amazing. But ranking wise, they're definitely a top 5 defense, and a big part of that is Brian Flores. There's a lot. I mean, Harrison Smith is still over there, but there's a lot of guys over there that we are just hearing about for the first time, and Brian Flores is making that shit work. And I don't know, back in like fading him at home, second time he sees a team. We'll talk about this game more on Friday. I still lean Packers though.
Yeah, I lean Packers too, just a plus money, even though they did clinch. Like you said, they can kind of spoil the division for the Vikings
and not get swept. I feel like they would love that.
And what that 1 seed would look like too. Again, because Vikings aren't out of that either. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more at stake here for both of these teams than just the division.
Yeah.
There's some Christmas Day games on as well in the NBA as well. With
take the Sixers plus 10 and take Joel Embiid props after he just got
getting ejected.
Yeah, he's 1,000% going to go off, bro. 1,000%.
And give me the Knicks at 9 as well, home against the Spurs. I don't love that. There's a little bias there, but
I think what's funny about Wemby. Wemby played well because I think I talked about this last year on the show, maybe, but I've definitely talked about it a lot of with my friends and shit, just betting wise. Anytime Wemby's playing a good big man, he turns it up a notch. Now, if you watched Sixers game last night, Embiid wasn't shooting particularly well, but he was winning the matchup. Had a couple blocks on Wemby, a couple strips on Wemby. Wemby looked uncomfortable, but then he was able to sell himself into the game and start going off. I think Wemby still had 30, maybe 28 or something like that. Wemby on prime time, first and foremost, and then Wemby versus any other good big man he really wants to show out. I think you might see a nice little clash of titans between Cat and Wemby. Shout out to Cat too. It's kind of nasty as a Sixers fan saying this, but Cat is having an unbelievable year. I kind of already said it when I was like, is he better than Jalen Brunson on this team right now? Just kind of giving him credit, but he's a perfect fucking fit. And I love I can't stand the Knicks, man, but I love watching the players that they have on that team play for the Knicks, which is just unfortunate. Cat's one of them, Mikel's one of them, and obviously Jalen Brunson another one of them.
And OG snapping as well.
OG's obviously doing his thing as always. One thing I want to say too, because I get to see how much Hartenstein means to the Thunder. this team's scary with Hartenstein still, I think.
Unbelievable.
Just as that extra piece. Obviously, money's money, but God, you kind of get to see how much he, like, there's some situations in the games where you get to see where his hustle plays would come in, his hustle rebounds would come in, just throwing his body on the line. But that team is still legit.
Just see what happens when Mitchell Robinson comes back and what the units will look like.
Yeah,
that's less of Jericho Sims.
That'd be Because I'm seeing a lot of Jericho Sims. Yeah, that's a good point. Because I'm seeing a lot of Jericho Sims right now, and I'm like, where would Hartenstein slot in these situations?
Yeah. So Mitchell Robinson comes back, and then kind of see what that B unit looks like, and it's an exciting time. At least they have that because the Rangers are in piss, and
we need desperately. There's a couple playoff series that we desperately need. We need Knicks Hawks.
Yeah, badly for that narrative with Trae Young.
I think Bucks Pacers again would be nice with the little rivalry they had going on with the whole ball thing. I don't know if it's going to be possible, but with the Sixers coming into the play-in, and they might contend for the 6th seed, they're only 4 games back. If we could get a play-in game, elimination game between, hopefully he doesn't get traded, Jimmy Butler's Heat versus Joel Embiid. There's some things that, and if you've been paying attention to the Western Conference, we can legit get any matchup in the West right now. Every single team in the Western Conference is very fucking good. Any playoff matchup in that Western Conference is going to be insane. There's some rivalry matchups that we need to kind of get these talks about the NBA heating up, get some more stories going. I would love to see a rematch between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, but I don't know if we're going to get that But if we could get Hawks, Knicks, that might be one of the best playoff series we've seen in a while. I need it. Like, I think the Hawks have won the last couple matchups, 3-4. Trae Young looks great. I call my nickname for that team is Magic City. There's a couple nicknames for teams. They're the Magic City Hawks. Then I have know about Energizer down in Orlando. I love the Magic. The Magic versus anybody this year is going to be good. We need Hawks versus Knicks, bro. There's a lot of talk about there's no rivalries in the NBA. They soft and whatnot. This, that, third. There's no competition. There's blowouts. I disagree with all those points, but I know for a fact in that series, they won't going to be there'll probably gonna be some blowouts. It's going to be some close games. It's going to be some heat it's going to be some chipping that's going on. And it's going to be a great rivalry for the sport. We need Hawks Knicks, bro. That's one thing I'm rooting for this year, bad.
Make sure you're checking out those Christmas Day games on the NBA slate, as well as those football games at 1 and 4:30 with the kicking off with the Chiefs and the Steelers, and then into the Ravens and the Texans. Have a good Christmas. Hit some bets. We'll talk to you after those Christmas Day games. Alex Jacobs, all-day bets. Manny Ruffin, another day of gambling, another day of hopefully getting some hits.
Take 3.
Eat some good food. Spend some time with the family. Make sure to watch those games. And most importantly, go win some fucking money.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas. We'll talk to you soon.
Merry fucking Christmas.